Hey everybody, welcome back. If you're new here, hi, I'm Mercury, and today this is going to be my 2025 books in review. So that's right, we're going to go through the books that I read this year. I read 17 books, but I'm going to talk about 16 of them because one of them was a book that was written by somebody I know that I was reading to support a friend. So I am going to talk about the 16 books that I read, and we are going to do a brief mini review of them and would I recommend reading this book or would I give it a pass? So I'm going to go in chronological order of how I started 2025 to how I ended the year. And this is the order that I read these books in. So I also say that I am really bad at pronouncing things that I haven't heard out loud. So if I mispronounce any of the authors' names, I truly apologize. I just may not have ever heard their name spoken out loud. So if I mispronounce it, I'm sorry, and I will put a title on this with the spelling of their name if I'm not sure how it's pronounced. So the first book that I read this year was a book of poetry called A Season in Hell and the Drunken Boat. So this was written by Arthur Rimbaud, and I found this to be a fantastic book of poetry with just a lot of descriptions that it resonated. It was a good one. I like that one. And also, side note, the introduction, like the preface on it, was written by Patti Smith, which I adore Patti Smith. I don't know if you've seen previous videos where I've done book reviews. Like, Patti Smith is just like, she is a gem. She is an absolute gem. So anything with Patti Smith's endorsement on it is worth checking out, in my personal opinion. The next book that I read was The Winter People, and this was written by Jennifer McMahon. This was an interesting book. It took some twists and turns. It kept me engaged. It kept me interested. It is kind of morbid. I should put like trigger warning on some of these books. I did read a number of like horror books / disturbing type of genres this year, so not every book that I read is everybody's cup of tea, but that doesn't change that they were well-written books or that they were really good at world building. And The Winter People, I felt, was really good at world building. I felt like I could relate to the characters and understand the plights that they were going through. I felt that I understood what the setting was like and the isolation that was felt in it. I felt like I connected with these characters in a way that I understood what the author was trying to convey. So I enjoyed reading The Winter People. So the next book I read was Bunny by Mona Awad. Now, this is one of those books that like I really, really wanted to enjoy, and I struggled with it, y'all. It was too abstract, too avant-garde, to the point that like I wasn't sure if I was reading somebody's fever dream or if this was meant to be like sci-fi horror, like this is actually happening, or if this is like a book about mental health. Like I didn't understand the world I was in. I didn't understand where the author was trying to take me, because there was just like a lot of strange, bizarre, over-the-top stuff happening, described as if they're actually happening, but in a way where I'm just like, what genre of book is this? And I couldn't connect to it because I didn't know what genre I was standing on, basically. So I was disappointed because I really wanted to enjoy Bunny. It was on my to-read list for a very long time, and so there's like that added level of disappointment for that too. So the next book I read was It Will Only Hurt for a Moment by Delilah S. Dawson, and this one really connected and resonated. Like, talk about world building. This was a really interesting book. This one I would even consider reading again. This one was like a girl who is going through some struggles in her personal life, is trying to sort of like reset, and goes on like a art retreat where she's trying to like reconnect to a passion. And instead there's like an old abandoned like hospital on the premises, and then the history of the land comes out, and there's like all this stuff that unfolds. Like, I really don't want to give spoilers on this one, but I would highly recommend this book if you like sort of like that genre of it's definitely it is a is it a horror? Is it? I mean, horrible things happen in it, but I don't. I mean, it's not like a Michael Myers horror. It's like horrible things happen in the history of humanity. So, and we'll put it in that sort of context. So, but I thought it was an extremely well-written book. I read that back in March is when I finished it, and I very vividly remember it. So when I can really, really remember sort of like the meat and potatoes of the books, I know it was a good one because it really, really stuck with me, and I'm carrying it, like I'm letting it live rent-free in my brain somewhere. So there's that. The next book I read was the Wind-Up Bird Chronicles. This has been on my to-read list for a long time. And this one is by Haruki Murakami. And this is the same author that wrote 1Q84, which if you've heard me talk about this book in the past, like I love that book. And once again, created an immersive world. And there were some strange occurrences that happened in it. But it's like toes the line between, is this sci-fi or is this just a person who's struggling? And it's the interactions of the characters that he meets and the journey that he goes on, like developing as a person and overcoming a real struggle in his life and trying to sort of like pick up broken, lost pieces and find himself. But the journey that he goes on is unique while like living in a mundane world. It's the best way I could describe it. I love that his neighbor calls the main character Mr. Wind-Up Bird. It's like just sort of like little nickname that was given to him, but it worked. It worked. The next book that I read was The Glass Sword, and that's by Victoria Aveyard. And this was the second book in the Red Queen series. So this is like one of those fun, I don't know if it's technically considered young adult or not, but it's sort of like X-Men meets like Game of Thrones. And these characters have powers similar to X-Men, but it's about sort of like nobility and like sort of people being nefarious the way Game of Thrones was. So it's kind of got the vibes of both of those kind of smushed together. So it's a fun read. It was a quick read for me. You know, if you're looking for something that's a little lighter, but still has action in it, it was good for that. Then I didn't read these two back to back, but I'm going to talk about them together because they're two parts of a series. I read Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark. Both of those are by Bryce Weaver. And those of you who might be in the book talk community already know those are like spicy, dark romance books. I don't even know how to describe it. They're horror books, but they're also spicy romance books, but it's a weird combination putting those two genres together. But yeah, here we are, and I read two of them. So take that as you will, and I'll just leave that there. The next book I read was Water for Elephants, and that's by Sarah Gurin. And I mean, just put circus in it and I'm gonna like it. So I put that preface it out there that like, this was a story that was centered around a traveling circus. I love circus. I love circus. So if there's a book that centers around circus, the probability is pretty high I'm going to connect to it and enjoy it. So there's that. But it was a great story. It was well written. I would definitely recommend this, even if circus isn't your thing, but like character development and interpersonal engagement, I definitely would recommend that book. Oh, Fevre Dream was the next one I read, and that's George R.R. Martin, so the same guy that wrote Game of Thrones. This was an interesting one. This one I didn't even know existed. And I was like, I want to read a vampire story. So I asked ChatGPT for like a vampire book that like, you know, I hadn't, like something that I hadn't heard of, like not the classic, like not like an Anne Rice or a Dracula, but like something new, something else in the vampire genre. And it recommended this book to me. Oh, y'all, this is another one that's going to live rent-free in my brain. This, I will put trigger warning for language because it takes place in an era where language that is no longer in any way appropriate today is used commonly in that time frame. So I do put that trigger warning there. This is a book that takes place on a steamship on the Mississippi River. I think it was like turn of the century, like 18 to 1900. And vampires on the steamship. Interesting. So they're going up and down the Mississippi. Vampires on a steamship. I don't want to spoil it because it was a good book. It was a good book. The next book I read was Shadow of the Wind, and this was a book by Carlos Ruiz Zafran. This was a really good book. This book I actually even recommended to my mom to read. This was a book, took place in Spain, if I recall. The main character is gifted a book from a special library. And then this whole story unfolds where you see parallels between this character's life who got the book and the author who wrote the book in the book, right? Like not the actual author, but like the book he picked from this special library. The author of that, there are a lot of parallels between their lives, and this book explores those parallels and where their lives kind of intersect at points. It's interesting. It's an interesting read. And my mom said she did enjoy it when she read it too. So that one gets 2 votes. The next book I read was Rant, the oral bibliography of Buster Casey, which is another book by Chuck Palahniuk, who I read one of his books every year, almost every year. He wrote Fight Club, he wrote Choke. He's written so many books, but they're all like a little bit off, a little bit disturbing, but just really interesting and compelling to read. So I will continue to read books by this author every year. So that was the one that I picked this year. He's definitely like a niche genre writer. So if you like his work, you like his work. If you don't, you don't. So there's not a big in between on that one. Another book I read is Tender as the Flesh by Augustina Basterica. Really disturbing book. A horror novel. Really, really hard to read. Well written. Very hard to read. I can't describe what it is about because like the YouTube might not allow it. It might be like a terms and conditions thing. So I can't really describe what it was about, but let's just put it like this. It takes place in a world where the food supply has been contaminated and they are seeking alternate foods. Yeah, it was a rough read. It was rough. Then after that, to lighten things up, I read After Oz, and that was by Gordon McAlpine. And this is a book that is like takes the Wizard of Oz premise, but asks the question, what happened to Dorothy when she got back? And the answer is, will people believe her? Will people believe her story? Did she just make it up? And what happens if there's something tragic that happens in the town and Dorothy gets blamed for it because parts of it could align with her story? What happens? And who will defend this little girl? That's what After Oz is about. It's a fantastic twist and continuation of the Wizard of Oz story. It's not like Wicked. It's very different, but it's a unique thought experiment is how I would put it. And I enjoyed reading this one. This was a good one. I would definitely recommend After Oz. The 16th book that I read was 8 Very Bad Nights. And it was a collection of Hanukkah noir. This was by Todd Goldberg. And this, I don't know if this is because I wanted it to be something that it wasn't, but I was disappointed, y'all. It was a collection of 11 short stories, which great. That's fine. But I wanted it to be more culture driven, and it was like, this was to Hanukkah what Die Hard is to Christmas. And I wanted it to be more Hanukkah driven, and it was just like lots of different stories, like, you know, that could have been like a CSI, you know, episode, or, you know, something like that, or like a big mystery, and, you know, like a whodunit kind of thing. And it just happens to take place on Hanukkah. That wasn't the vibe that I was getting from the cover. That wasn't the vibe I was getting from reading the back of it. It really was like the equivalent of, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Is 8 Very Bad Nights a Hanukkah book? Yeah. So because I wanted it to be something that it wasn't, I didn't enjoy it as much as I may have if I felt like the description of it better matched what I would be getting out of it. So I hope that makes sense. So not a bad book, not bad short stories. I just didn't like the way it was packaged. So that is my books in review for this year. I had a lot of good reads. I beat my personal goal. I had a goal of 15 books. I finished 17 books this year, so I did good. So I'm off to a good start for this year. I started out with this, Tim Curry's Vagabond. So this is where I'm starting out 2026. And, you know, at the end of the year, and I'll let you know where we land. So I also want to know, what was on your reading list this year? Did you read any excellent books? And if so, let me know, because I might want to add them on my want to read list. So let's talk about some of the books that we all read in 2025. And let's talk about the ones that we have on our list for 2026. So leave a comment with those books. And with that, I am done for the day. I will see you all real soon. And until then, stay inspired. Bye, everyone. Take care.